I never figured I'd be the kind of person to lock another human in my own root cellar and wait for the sheriff to show up. But there I was, that cold October evening, staring out into the rain, watching Judith Breener, the so-called neighborhood queen bee, jamming a pry bar into the old iron lock on the one place I swore nobody'd ever touch. The second she broke that lock and crossed into what Sarah and I built together, I just stood there, soaked to the bone, heart thumping, thinking, well, that's it. That's the line, right there. And when the storm door slammed behind her, it was almost like fate made the call for me. I slid my own padlock through the latch and dialed the law. That stormy night turned out to be the end of Judith's little reign of terror, and believe me, it was overdue. The rain started as a whisper, barely tickling your skin, but you could feel that charge in the air, like trouble was just rolling down off the hills. I was in the greenhouse, fussing with the last tomato vines, when I caught that feeling, wind getting gusty, the sky dropping lower, the old oaks scraping the roof like they were warning me. Nearly 20 years I've been here, 15 with Sarah before the cancer, and I know every creak, every warning sign, every sound that says, you'd better close up and batten down. The root cellar's about 50 yards out, tucked into the rise my grandfather built in 1940. From the outside, it's just a heavy oak door in a concrete frame, an old lock gone green with age, but still strong, if you know the trick. Sarah and I used to keep homemade wine down there, every bottle with a handwritten label, some with little hearts or notes. Memories more than anything else. After she passed, I couldn't drink a drop. So, the cellar became a time capsule. Her perfume, the smell of damp earth, old wood. Honestly, that place is the closest thing I've got left of her. But Judith, she'd been circling for months. Some folks are like hawks. They spot a weakness and just wait. 3 months ago, she mailed me a fake HOA letter claiming my fence was 6 inches too high. Never mind that our so-called association is just a myth Judith keeps alive for her own amusement. 6 weeks later, she's posting pictures of my compost bin, says the smell's a problem, even though she lives 4 houses away. Last week, she stood at the edge of my driveway, phone out, filming my vegetable beds, muttering about unpermitted structures. Raised beds, wood, dirt, tomatoes. Nothing fancy. But Judith always saw a scandal. My lawyer said what I already knew. Judith's got zero legal standing. The HOA lives only in her head, and the best thing to do was document everything and avoid direct confrontation. So, that's what I did. Kept quiet. Waited. When the light started fading, I caught a flicker by the cellar. At first, I thought it was just shadows, the way the rain played tricks on your eyes. But then, there it was again, a flash of yellow, way too sharp to be natural. I froze, half between greenhouse and house, phone in my hand, listening to the wind and my own heartbeat. Pulled up the security cam on my phone. Bad signal, slow feed, but clear enough. Judith, in that ridiculous yellow raincoat, crouched at my root cellar door, working something metal into the lock. She looked over her shoulder every few seconds, fidgety, like a kid trying to swipe candy from the store. Watching her made my jaw clench. This wasn't HOA drama anymore. This was straight up breaking and entering. I almost yelled, almost ran out. But I remembered my lawyer's words, don't engage. Document. Let the law work. So I hit record, watched, waited. Metal scraped. Then, a click. Judith pulled the door open and slid inside, flashlight beam wobbling through the darkness. For a second, I just stood there, soaked in the rain, thinking about Sarah, about the jars and bottles and laughter stored in that cellar, about the life I'd built and the woman now tearing through it for evidence. Judith rummaged through shelves, her flashlight darting around like she expected to find the Ark of the Covenant. Her phone's flashlight joined the party, and she started snapping photos. What did she think she'd find? Homemade pickles stuffed with contraband? Wine bottles full of illegal moonshine? Please. Sarah and I made 20 bottles a year, tops, and half the time we gave them away at Christmas. Rain came down in sheets now, turning the yard to soup. I tried calling the sheriff, but the storm killed the signal. All I could do was wait. I hunkered down in the greenhouse, heart pounding, watching Judith pick through my life. She moved with purpose, convinced she was about to uncover some neighborhood scandal. At one point, She picked up a bottle Sarah labeled the last year she was healthy. She held it up, reading the note, taking a picture. Something in me broke, seeing that. Lightning flashed. Thunder rolled closer. I typed an email to my lawyer, attached the video. Outbox only, signal still dead. All I could do was keep watching. Then, a sudden gust, maybe fate, maybe just bad luck, slammed the cellar door shut behind Judith. Hard. I watched her flashlight spin, then freeze. Heard her yell. Couldn't make out the words. But I knew the script. Let me out. You can't do this. She banged on the door, voice high and panicked. Here's the thing. That door locks automatically from the outside. A little trick my granddad built in. Keeps animals out, keeps the cold in. Once it's shut, you need a key or someone on the outside. I stepped through the mud, pulled out the spare padlock, and fixed it to the door. Judith kept pounding, her voice going from bossy to scared to angry, shouting that I was breaking the law. I just locked her in and walked away, the rain plastering my hair to my face. Back in the kitchen, I hung up my soaked jacket, made coffee, and watched the root cellar through the window. Judith's still in there, probably yelling, maybe crying, definitely plotting her next move. I felt no guilt. She broke in, tore through the last piece of Sarah I had, and now she was paying the price. I tried the phone again. Nothing. The wind howled. The power flickered. I downloaded the security footage and sent it to my lawyer, the sheriff's office, and my own backup, still stuck in the outbox, but ready to blow the moment the network came back. Somewhere out in the dark, Judith was learning what real consequences feel like. The cellar's safe, vented, dry, not going to flood or suffocate anyone. But it's dark, cold, and probably terrifying for someone who's never faced her own limits before. I sat in my chair, blanket around my shoulders, sipping coffee, thinking about Sarah. She'd have handled it just like me, patient, precise, but firm. You don't let bullies trample your memories. Judith pounded on the door, her voice getting shrill. Then desperate. She screamed that the cellar was flooding, that she couldn't breathe, that I was responsible if anything happened. I almost laughed. Those drainage channels my grandfather cut work better than anything the county ever installed. No danger, just discomfort. Finally, close to dawn, the signal came back. I got through to a dispatcher, explained everything, and was told help would come as soon as the roads were clear. By morning, the storm had shredded the yard, branches everywhere, fence half down, but the cellar stood solid, padlock unmoved. I brewed fresh coffee, boots squelching in the mud as I checked on the door. No more yelling. Maybe Judith had passed out, or maybe she'd just run out of excuses. Sheriff Boyd Garrison arrived just after sunrise, looking like he'd driven through a hurricane, which, in a way, he had. His deputy, a young woman new to the area, followed with her tablet at the ready. I gave them the whole story, showed the video. Boyd nodded, never interrupting. Did you try to communicate with her? He asked. I told him. She claimed authority. I called her trespasser and said the cops were coming. He nodded again. We crossed the muddy yard to the cellar. Fresh scratches around the lock. Sheriff Boyd banged on the door, told Judith to step back. There was a clatter inside, then silence. I unlocked the padlock. He worked the internal bolt, and the door swung open. Judith stumbled out. Mud to her knees, hair stuck to her head, eyes swollen. She looked a decade older, honestly. She started in right away. She was just trying to help, had concerns about illegal activity, was trapped through no fault of her own. Boyd let her finish, then laid out the facts. You're on private property. There's video. You forced entry. The owner called us immediately. The fact that you trapped yourself doesn't change what you did. She sputtered, tried to spin it her way, but the deputy calmly cuffed her and read her rights. Neighbors gathered, watching quietly. Arms crossed, faces unreadable. A few looked downright pleased. Judith, once the terror of the block, now stood in the mud, handcuffed, shrinking under the weight of her own actions. One by one, neighbors stepped forward, stories about Judith sneaking into backyards, posting photos online, filing bogus complaints. Each tale painted a bigger picture. This wasn't just about me. This was about the whole neighborhood getting a little justice. Judith's defense was the same as always. She meant well, she cared, she was misunderstood. Boyd just shook his head. Intent doesn't override action. The law's here to keep folks like you from taking things too far. He listed the charges: Trespass, breaking and entering, property damage. Judith started to cry. The deputy helped her into the car, and the sheriff turned to me. Justice delayed is still justice, he said, just a hint of a smile. The neighborhood relaxed after that. Folks drifted home, relief settling in. I went down to the cellar, cleaned up the mess, put jars back, wiped Sarah's wine bottles free of muddy fingerprints. The space felt whole again, sturdy as my grandfather built it. Judith left no real mark, just a broken lock and a lesson about boundaries. A few days later, I signed paperwork at the sheriff's office. Judith was out on bail, under a restraining order. Maybe she'd pay a fine. Maybe more, but she wouldn't be back. The neighbors talked about forming a real HOA, one with rules, but fair ones. I said I'd join, as long as it respected people's rights. Everyone nodded, hope blooming that maybe, just maybe, things would get better. That weekend, I invited a few folks over. Burgers on the grill, stories on the porch, laughter rising where once there'd been tension. As the sun set, I took a walk to the root cellar, opened one last bottle of wine from our final harvest, poured a glass for Sarah. Kept my promise, I whispered. Protected what we built. With patience and the law. The wine tasted the same as ever. Rich, a little tart, perfectly ours. So, tell me, what would you do if someone trampled your memories in the name of their own authority? When's the last time you saw justice work out in your favor? Drop your stories below. What's right? What's wrong? And what would you defend if push came to shove? And if you want more wild stories, where the line finally gets drawn, you know what to do. Stick around, and let's unravel more madness together.